Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's another lovely, cool day here in Eastern North Carolina. I think it's winter trying to desperately cling on to the year, but spring is here and everything will start warming up. We almost hit a freeze this morning, and I think tomorrow morning we're under another freeze warning here. Again, I'm in growing zone 8A, Eastern North Carolina. Temperatures may differ where you are. Some of you may still be covered in snow and probably are. But today I'm going to be talking about dahlias, and specifically my dahlias, not just dahlias in general, but my dahlias and what had happened with the dahlias I put into storage and some of the new varieties I got. So last year, if you watched, I did a video, if I remember, I'll post it up over here, but I did a video on me storing my dahlias. And essentially I put them in coconut coir, and I use that as my medium. You can use a variety of mediums. Some work better than others. I know Laura over at Garden Answer, I believe she was using vermiculite. I know Monty Don, I think, uses old compost. There's another channel I watch. I can't think of the name. Jeff's Dahlias or something. If I remember, I'll post it here. But either way, I think he uses old compost as well. Somebody else I think uses just newspaper. Again, everybody's growing medium for storage is a little different, and there's no right answer per se. That being said, not all of my dahlias survived. I had two dahlias, Lady Liberty, and I can't for the love of me remember the other one, didn't make it. I did not either moisten them enough throughout the winter months. They were stored in the garage, and the garage is relatively cool or cold for the year, and they shriveled up. So I lost Lady Liberty and another one, which again, his name escapes me. There are a few others, such as this lilac thyme that I have here, which pretty bad, but I soaked it in water for a few hours, and now I have it in very moist soil, and I'm hopeful it will make a comeback. I'd seen there was a garden channel called The Small Garden, I believe it was called. It was a very old gentleman living in England. He had this lovely little back garden. He was a professional gardener, retired, blah, 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 blah. I can no longer find the channel. If you know the channel I'm talking about, please leave a comment below. But he had once taken a partially shriveled dahlia, soaked it in water, I think for 24 hours, and was able to save it. I did mine for a few hours and then put it into moist soil. I'm going to continue to monitor this and see, with a little luck, this lilac thyme may come back. If it does, great. If it doesn't, well, I killed another one. I'm not an expert by far. I just try. Some of my other dahlias that were in storage had dried, shriveled up parts, but other tubers were perfectly fine. So just cut and remove those damaged parts. It's almost as if the plant was drawing maybe from one particular tuber at a time, and when that tuber had extinguished itself or the plant has drawn enough energy from it, it went to the next tuber and then left three good ones. Again, if I hadn't touched it for a while, it probably would have totally shriveled up. It also seemed that obvious, and maybe this is an obvious thing, but the larger the tuber, the better it did. The smaller the tuber, the less likely. So some of my tubers I had in the ground last year, when I pulled them up, they had very small tubers. Some of them didn't make it. Again, probably like the Lady Liberty and maybe this lilac thyme. Others which had very large tubers, such as Ryan C., or Clearview, Franz Kafka, they did well because they had larger tubers. So even though I didn't keep them as moist as I should have, and again, when you put your dahlias in storage, you should try to keep them moist-ish. You don't want to soak them, but just try to keep them moist so that they try to, hopefully will survive your season in storage. Now again, I'm in growing zone 8A. I could have left these in the ground and they would have been coming up fine right now, but I didn't. And the reason I didn't was because I wanted to build a proper dahlia garden for them, or an area of the flower garden, which I'll show you in a little while, that I'm going to build I'm going to put all these dahlias in one particular place. I'll leave them there for 2 to 3 years. And then as time goes on, what happens is if you leave a dahlia in the ground too long, it continues to grow, but it may flower less. It just, the tubers get too big, gets too many, so it needs to be divided. So at that point, I can then dig up the dahlias, I can divide them, I can replant them, basically get more free plants, but I can leave them in the ground for a period of time, which is awesome. So I don't have to dig them up every single year. So the ones I had in storage last year, I had Baby Yellow, Boogie Nights, Winky Colonel, who else I got here? Southern Belle, Gudschink, can't pronounce that. I mentioned Franz Kafka, Paintball, Clearview, Arabian Night, Sylvia, Pretty Woman, Dark Angel. That one was interesting. Pretty Woman, Dark Angel had 3 tubers, and of the 3, really only 1 survived. Again, the larger, the stronger the tuber, the better chances of it were surviving. Bride to Be, Ahoy Matey, Black Satin, Ryan C. Who's this? Bambino. Bambino was another small one, and I'm not sure if that's going to survive at all. But again, I gave it that good soak for a few hours, put it into really moist soil. I'm keeping the soil around it moist, and hopefully over time the tuber itself, none of the tubers that I'm trying to save felt hollow in the center or soft. So I think that there's good, what's the word I'm looking for? Plant material on the inside, and it was just the outer that had shriveled and shrunken. So again, hopefully keeping them very moist, they will start to basically rehydrate, and then they'll be good to go for the season. That's pretty much all the dahlias I had for last year. Now again, some of these I had singles and others I had multiples. I was also able to turn around and divide some of these dahlias at this point while I was removing, let's say, some dead material. And some of the dahlias, there's a bunch of YouTubers out there that have fantastic videos on dividing tubers. So I suggest that you go look them up. Maybe in a few years when I'm better at it, I'll do a how-to. But again, there are some fantastic, just search Dahlia dividing or dividing dahlias. Again, there's some great videos out there. I believe Laura from Garden Answers done it. Jeff and Heather's Dahlia Garden, I think that's what it's called. Again, I'll put the link there. Impatient Gardener. The list goes on and on and on. There's again, just search dividing dahlias. I'm sure there's a ton of great videos out there that'll teach you how to divide the dahlias. But I was able to divide some of my dahlias because I could notice some of the inodes, and as long as you have an inode and then the tuber itself, you should get a whole new dahlia, which is great. That being said, I couldn't help myself but to get more dahlias. So last fall, I placed my dahlia orders, and if you're going to start growing dahlias and get into that, there's a couple ways you can do it. If you really want to stay specific to each plant, in other words, you care about the variety of dahlia you get, then you buy from a specialty company like Swan Island Dahlias, Brex, Longfield Gardens. If you don't care so much about the type or the variety or name of the dahlia that you get, then you just go to Home Depot, Lowe's, big box store, whatever, buy yourself a bag of dahlia tubers, stick them in the ground, they'll grow, they'll be beautiful. But I like to keep the individual types separate. So again, I'll be building out a dahlia garden. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So I purchased a bunch of new ones. And again, as these dahlias grow, I will divide and get free plants out of them, spread those around, but I'll always have my dahlia corner, as it were, to the flower garden. I'll show you that in a minute. But just touch on some of the varieties I got this year. I got Star Child, Fuzzy Wuzzy, Hoolin's, Carnival. There's some weird names to dahlias. Sheer Heaven, Picasso, Southern Belle, Ginger Willow, Inflammation, Gets Crazy. That one was a free one from Swan Island. And again, I ordered my dahlias in the fall when all the growers are preparing their dahlias. I forgot to mention that before, sorry. But all the dahlias, growers grow a certain amount of dahlias every year based upon sales, I'm guessing. And if you want, you get yours in the, time to order is the fall. So order yours in fall, from September to December. That's probably your better window. You start looking for those Dahlia, again, Swan Island, Longfield Gardens, Brex. There's probably half a dozen others out there. But that's when you get your orders in, and then they ship them to you at the appropriate time in the spring. I got mine earlier because I'm in growing zone 8A. If I was in growing zone 7A, I would still be waiting for my dahlias, and I probably wouldn't get them until May. Back to some of the varieties I got. I mentioned Gets Crazy, Mother's Love, Ivante. Ooh, I got a crazy one from Longfield Gardens called, and I'm going to mispronounce this, so I'll put the name below here, Suki Yori no Shisha. It sounds Japanese to me. It probably is. The flower just looks fantastic, so I can't wait for that. And that one is already growing. It's got a little thing coming up out of it. And then I got Happy Day and Raspberry Punch and Cafe au Lait. Finally got my hands on a Cafe au Lait. Always wanted a Cafe au Lait. I don't know why. Maybe it's just peer pressure because everybody I know on the internet or social media who loves dahlias grows a Cafe au Lait. So I have a Cafe au Lait now too. They are expensive, which is interesting, and I think it's because of the popularity of that particular flower. So I only got one, and over time I will divide that so I get more Cafe au Laits for free, as it were. But hopefully it survives the season. We'll see what it does from there. Now, I do want to mention something, which you may have already noticed. I'm growing my dahlias, or they're in these trays right now. Now, you can grow them in pots. You could start them off in pots and then plant them out in the ground. I have mine in trays for a couple of reasons. One is dahlias, they don't burrow down deep. They're a pretty shallow plant, so they stay close to the surface. In fact, when you plant them, you only plant them 2 to 3 inches down. You don't really plant them, let's say, 6 to 8 inches down, and the roots really don't get that far down into the ground. So I start them here. I just want to see what comes up, and if you can see, again, here's I forget what variety this is. This is Inflammation. It's already throwing up a shoot. Now, I can cut this back, won't harm the plant, and actually what I may do, and I have to go actually watch her video. The Impatient Gardener, Erin, she turned around and did a video recently on growing dahlias from cuttings. So when the plants are very young like this, and they just start throwing up those shoots, and those shoots start putting out the leaves, you can take a cutting, put it into a growing medium that's free draining. It will throw out roots theoretically and start growing to a new dahlia plant. So I think I'm going to try that this year, and that's another reason for starting these off early in the trays, because I can start, I can take those cuttings, try to grow them, see what happens. With a little luck, I get more free dahlias. So you can grow dahlias from cuttings and from division of the tubers. The other reason I put them in these trays is, again, I was taking the old ones out of storage, and I wanted to see how bad they were, how good they were, how bad they were, who survived, who didn't survive. So this was good. And once you sort of take them out of storage like that, I think you should just do something with them. And in my case, I put them in the trays to start recuperating them so that they could start growing. Now, I've mentioned a few times the Dahlia garden. Let me go show you that real quick. Okay, so here we are at the entrance to the grand walkway. And as I walk backwards, and I call it the grand walkway because it's a wide walkway. It's about 20 feet wide. Off to the side here, I have the vegetable garden. Over here, I have these timbers on the ground, and that will be an extension of the flower garden in the front, or off of the grand walkway. There's a gap then. That will be the entrance to the flower garden. And then this bed right here is the beginning of the Dahlia garden. The Dahlia garden, I want to also extend out this way. And that then will hopefully give me plenty of growing space. The Dahlia garden itself will be 60 feet, or the flower garden, I should say. The flower garden will be 60 feet wide by approximately 90 feet long. And the beds are 8 feet deep. 2 to 4 feet of the bed may be taken up by hedging. So I started in the front, I started the one corner already, and I've got some plants in there, and I'll show you that at a later date. I'm going to extend it. I have peonies. I have other plants that I'm going to put into this section over here. But then in this section will be pretty much all dahlias. I think I may have a hedge or two, a hedging plant like a boxwood, something along those lines, maybe just to break up all the dahlias. I'm not sure about that at this point. I also may put something along the edges of the garden here, such as lavender. So when you walk in, there'll be hedges off on the sides and then lavender leading you in. And then again, hopefully I'm still in frame. This will be the inside of the flower garden, and these will be the beds that then will get filled. The beds still need to be prepared. I just laid out, as you saw in the beginning of the video, the timbers. The beds need to be prepared, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to turn around. I'm going to weed whack the grass as low as possible. I'm then going to use a broad fork to loosen the soil. I have heavy clay soil here. So I'm going to use a broad fork to loosen it as much as possible. I'm going to put down gypsum. That will also help soften or loosen the soil up. Then I'm going to put cardboard on top of that. That will help kill the grass. And then I will be putting my topsoil on top of that. Compost, I should say, not topsoil, I apologize. Compost. And then I'll be putting my compost on top of that, and I will plant my dahlias into. Again, dahlias don't need to be planted 6 inches deep. So the 3 inches or so, that is the height of these beds, is fine. I will use all sorts of stakes to help support them. I'll do a whole another video on building out the beds, or planting into the beds at some point in the future. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click that bell icon to be notified of when I do post up a new video. So this way, when I do another video on the planting of the dahlia beds, that will be that. Now the outer edges, and maybe again, I'm still undecided about the interior edges, will be hedging. And part of the reason I'm going to do the hedging is A, decorative, and B, to help act as a little bit of a windbreak. We do get some windy days here in Eastern North Carolina, especially where I'm located, and there's a lot of open field. So the wind just rushes right through here. The dahlia supports will be important, and the hedging will hopefully act as windbreaks over time once they get big enough. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them below. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. Please check out all those links below. And I think that's going to about do it for today. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.